Ready? Do you get nervous?
Well, yeah, I do. And that's with having no one in the room. Having somebody sitting right here.
It's just a natural conversation. It's back and forth.
I know, but I have to like do the whole intro right now. I thought about doing it before you got here, but I didn't have time.
Why don't you just record a standard recorded intro? Get one that you like and then just preface it with all of them.
No. I have to do it every time. I'm like,
this should just be our intro. You should just put this at the beginning of everything.
Hi everyone, this is the intro. There you go.
There you go.
Just get into the conversation. Great. That one's recording. Yeah, that one's recording.
Is it recording?
Yeah, it's recording.
Are you sure?
Yeah, it is. I recorded. I hit record on all of them.
Did you?
Yeah.
Are you sure?
Yeah. Hi everyone, welcome into another Love Tech video today. I'm Andrew Loveland. Thanks for joining us. Today I have a really interesting, actually my first special guest here on the channel today. His name is Cody Shasteen. He actually has worked with me for multiple years at a state agency here in Oregon. Cody currently works in one of the leading communication companies in the United States, and I'm super excited to have him here today. So I'll be asking him some questions about like what 5G is, the future of 5G, and kind of just 5G in general. There are some rumors out there, as you may well know, that 5G could be possibly harmful to you, so we're going to talk about that a little bit today as well. So everyone, welcome Cody into the channel today.
Hello. Yeah, I'm really happy to be here. This is going to be fun. I've actually wanted to do something like this for a long time and just haven't done it, so let's go. It'll be fun.
So first off, tell us a little bit about your background in IT and also in the cell phone industry.
Yeah, so for a long time I worked with you at a state agency in web development and some stuff like that. In IT in general, I got bounced around a bunch, and now I work as in the communications industry. In a pretty involved role. I can't really say what it is, but yeah, it's a lot of fun. I work with phones on the daily basis. I work with making sure things are up and running. It's a pretty fun job. I like it, and it helps me get to see what's moving forward and what's going on. So it's gonna be really cool to talk about some of this stuff.
I'm excited.
Me too.
So how long have you actually worked in the cell phone industry for?
So I've worked in the cell phone industry for about 2.5 years now, give or take a couple months. And then like I said before that, it was just IT in general and technology in general. So
cool. Yeah, cool. Well, nice to have you here. I'm super excited, guys, to have Cody here today, and just so we can talk about 5G as a whole. And this is my first actual like interview on the channel, so I'm excited to like introduce you to some of my friends and everything, and just kind of have fun. So.
Oh yeah, and I'll be sharing this around work too, so we'll see.
I know. I'm excited. I'm excited.
So everyone can laugh at me.
They don't laugh at me.
No,
we're both comical.
Okay.
So the first question I want to ask you today is, where do you see the cell phone industry going as a whole in like the next 5 years?
I think that's actually a fantastic question. I think it's going to be entirely different than what it is now. As you've already can see, we already have phone companies moving into in-home Wi-Fi and things like that. Mm-hmm. We have them putting devices in cars to help you keep track and monitor your car and doing all of those kinds of things. I could easily see there being a whole lot more integration going through. We have smartwatches. We have, there are people out there working on smart rings.
Oh wow!
I don't know if you knew that one.
No,
it's very, very janky. It's not very well done right now. There's all sorts of different things out there. Samsung is working on having it to where you can hook up your phone to your laptop through your Samsung DeX. I see a lot of future improvements coming. I think it's going to be even more involved in our lives than it is now. There are some really, really cool ideas out there. Things with like parking garages saying when you pull into a garage, you have your phone in your car and it says, hey, there's a spot open over here. Well, using cool. Like sensors and things like that that can market where that's going to be and things like that. I think that's going to be some really cool stuff.
I think it's amazing like how far our society as a whole has evolved. Like if you look even like 10 or 15 years ago, how far we've come along. Like like you just mentioned, like we'll be able to drive into a parking garage and have our cell phone tell us like where there are empty spaces. Right. 10 or 15 years ago, that would have been like non-existent.
Yeah, exactly. Like it's insane how far it's all come. I'm really excited to see where some of these companies are going. There's a couple of them out there that are doing some really good work, but most of them are. And it's going to be really interesting to see where it goes. In the next 5 years, honestly, I have no idea where we'll be at. I think that I don't think it's something that we can predict.
But it's just going to advance.
It's going to advance so quickly with how things are going right now.
Yeah, it's insane with like obviously like 4G. I remember I was in college actually when 4G was rolled out, and
what I said, you're old.
I know I am. I'm so old. I remember when 4G came out, guys. Yeah, I remember when that came out. I think I was a sophomore or junior in college. That would have been like a 2012, 2013 timeframe was when 4G started to massively roll out, and here we are, like 7, 8 years later, where we're seeing 5G roll out. So maybe like another
LTE has been the standard now. Yeah, it's going to be interesting.
You saw the 4G rollout and everything. So the 5G rollout is happening in 2020. So like 6G, I guess, is like out there.
It could theoretically, yeah, absolutely.
Have you actually heard any sort of things about 6G or any talk at all, like about?
I have not. I've been focusing on seeing what 5G can do and where 5G is going to go. 5G is still so new. I haven't begun to look at what's coming next. Like, I actually have a 5G phone.
Nice. I don't. I have an Apple phone, guys. So I don't. Who knows how long it's going to be before Apple actually has a 5G?
I think if somehow Apple watches this video, they need to put 5G in their next phone, because there's already an LG phone that has 5G. There's already a Samsung.
Yep.
There's already a OnePlus. There's going to be, I'm sure Huawei and some of those ones already have them. It's going to be insane if they don't.
Well, not to diss Apple here.
No, not at all. That's not what I'm saying. This is
no. Like for me to diss Apple, because I'm going to say this is like, yeah, Apple is very notorious for taking longer, and a lot of the time they say, oh, we're going to implement this new technology, but hold out so we know it's exactly done right, like on our actual device.
Right.
So they want to make sure they perfect
They want to make sure
it.
it's perfect.
They're never. Apple's hardly ever like the first to the market on just about anything. I mean, there are exceptions, like big things like smartwatches. They were
absolutely. I'm wearing a Gear S2 right now, and I'll tell you right now, the Apple Watch on your wrist is 10 times better. I wanted to kind of go over what 5G is. 5G stands for 5th generation network, wireless network. It's just the next progression of wireless technology, just like, 2G brought us phone calls and text messages, barely. 3G brought us into being able to use data very, very slowly on your phone, and having text messages.
It's like dial-up on your phone.
Right, and having emails and things like that. And then 4G brought about widespread internet, and LTE brought about even faster internet. 5G is just the next step of that, moving forward into bigger and better, greater things where we can do more because the connection is stronger. There's a few different ways that some of the companies are doing that. There's one called millimeter wave. There is also, there's high band, mid band, and low band. High band is considered millimeter wave, which is the one where you see people getting like 3 gigabit per second download speeds. That's probably exaggerating a bit, don't quote me on that. But you're getting, realistically, it's like 1.5 gigabit per second download speeds, and you're downloading a movie in like 5 seconds, right? Things like that. That's coming from the millimeter wave because it's moving so quickly. It's going so fast that it's all transferring all of this data so quickly. Then you have midband, and now with millimeter wave, it gets stopped by anything. It'll get stopped if it hits a tree. It will get stopped if it hits it won't even go through like a window, right? That's where millimeter wave isn't as viable an option, because it's really only going to work in larger cities like San Francisco or New York, where they have everyone out on the streets walking around, and it just can go straight into their phones. And you have midband. Midband is going to be the one that is just where it just kind of goes through and gets you your fast signal, gives you good service, it gives you all those things perfectly fine, right? Then you have low band. Low band is going to be the one that goes the furthest. It's the one that is being promised to help like rural communities. I can never say that word.
Rural, yeah, it is.
And it's going to be the one that is going to bring more service to more people. Because it reaches farther, it's going farther.
Even further than like a 4G band would.
Oh, absolutely, 110%. Yes, because it's a slower moving wave, right? Just like if you're looking at AM versus FM.
Right.
Millimeter wave is FM radio. It gets stopped by tunnels. It gets stopped by things like that.
The AM goes much
further. The low band is going to be where it's like AM, because it just goes over and just goes through things, right? And when it comes down to it, that's going to be where it's going to benefit. In my opinion, I think that's going to be the most beneficial thing to most people.
For 5G evolution.
For 5G evolution is, and at least at first, I think that's going to be the priority.
Is reaching those rural communities that don't have
and are currently gridlocked,
right,
economically, because they can't find a cell phone carrier other than maybe just one carrier who knows how much they charge,
right, to get to their community.
To get to their community, because that's the only carrier that's out there.
Right.
Doing this is going to even up the grid more.
So to a follow-up question on that then. So in other words, the mid-band is what will probably be most widely used.
So
in 5G
yes and no.
No, okay.
Yes and no. The mid-band is going to be the one that brings up the internet speeds while also providing more coverage at further distances.
Okay.
That's kind of, and this is based off of, this hasn't been built out yet. All right, so all of this could change. None of this is set in stone on how this is going to go out. Now, when it comes down to it, if you look at 4G LTE, that's how it's, we don't have millimeter wave for that. We just have high, low, and mid bands for LTE signal. And millimeter wave is actually one that is so controversial.
Gotcha.
On whether or not it's safe or not safe, and we'll transition to that.
Yeah.
The mid-band is going to be the one that gets people, 200, 300, 400 megabit per second download speeds.
And right now, just to clarify, for 4G, a mid-band 4G connection will get you about how fast a speed compared to a 5G.
So
just
that's
comparing the two.
absolutely.
And
That's
we'll go into more comparisons.
So that's
later
going to be right. That's going to be where it comes down to your device and your connection speed. So keep that as a disclaimer. It's going to depend on what phone you have. It's going to depend on a lot of different things because different phones have different antennas. Ultimately, you can get anywhere. I've seen up to like 40 or 50, 60, 70 megabit per second download speeds on LTE.
For mid-band.
For mid-band, yeah. Mm-hmm. And that's just on overall connection. It prioritizes whatever is going to be the fastest. And the low-band 5G network, which is what I connect to, I get roughly, and I got to be careful how much I say on this, I get roughly between, in the same spot where I was getting like 40 or 50, I get roughly 60 or 70.
So 5G,
even the low band.
So 5G low band is even faster for the most part.
Not guaranteed.
But
right.
For the most part is going to be about the same or a little bit faster than a mid-band.
And the priority, and you gotta remember, the priority for the low band 5G is not gonna be to give you faster speeds.
Right.
Right. The priority for a low band, at least this is what I've seen from the companies that have pushed out the low band, is gonna be that they're prioritizing getting coverage to people that don't have coverage. And this is depending on which company you're at too.
Right.
Some companies are saying we're pushing out the millimeter wave because we want to get those faster speeds out right here, right now. Some of them are doing in-home solutions where you hook up a router and it pushes out a 5G signal through your router, so you get those 1.5, 2 gigabit per second download speeds. Some companies are just adding those to their towers. Other companies are just going straight for the low band, which is where it's just reaching out and giving coverage to everyone.
Giving more coverage.
Right, giving more coverage.
So in other words, it's
dependent on which company you're talking to or talking about.
So in other words, it's a big mix of all the above, kind of low band, mid band, high band, or is high band the same as millimeter, or is there are there actually 4 bands of 5G?
There's 3 bands of 5G. There's millimeter wave, mid band, and low band.
Gotcha. Okay.
And if I'm wrong, someone can correct me in the comments later.
But in other words, the millimeter band is basically replacing the high band on 4G.
Essentially, yeah.
It's just they're calling it something different, and it's
because high band is high band. It doesn't go through things.
Right. So, in other words, I guess another question I'd have, kind of follow up, is we kind of briefly touched base on the difference between probably 4G and 5G speed-wise, but what are some pros and cons between 4G versus 5G? Like what are some pros on 5G and 4G, and then what are some cons on 4G and 5G?
So that's a fantastic question, and pros and cons are a little bit more difficult than just kind of looking straight down through it. The pros of 5G is everything's going to be faster, it's going to be more connected, it's going to go farther. The pros to 4G is it's already everywhere. Right. There's already companies have spent billions of dollars mashing out and pushing out 4G networks.
Right, and it's tested.
And it's tested.
So
you know it works. Yeah. You know it happens. You know what's going on with it.
Right.
You know it's safe.
Right.
When it comes to some of these things with 5G, when it comes to the cons of 4G, we're at the limit.
Right.
There's still more things we can do, but realistically, if we want to push past it and get more things, we need to have 5G. We need to push past it and get more stuff. We need that innovation. Now, don't get me wrong. I don't think 4G is going to be dead.
Right.
I think
it's
going to
be
become.
around still.
I think 4G and specifically 4G LTE is going to become kind of the backbone
Of 5G.
of 5G. There are a couple of companies out there that are building 5G off of 4G. So merging two different kinds of network types, network bands, and pushing it out that way. And when it comes down to some of the cons of 5G, it's something we haven't really tested a lot yet, right?
Like I guess
I have found with my 5G phone, there have been occasional times where I actually get worse performance than I do on 4G. I don't know if it's because the phone handles the data stream differently and the apps don't know how to utilize that, but it's something where it's still evolving, and I knew that when I picked up my 5G phone. I knew there were going to be some issues because it's new technology, right? So when it comes down to it, for the record, it's not like it halts the usage of my phone.
Right.
I just go switch over to 4G, switch it back, and then it works just fine.
Right.
It takes 10 seconds. Other than that, realistically, that's really all I got for you.
I mean,
pros and cons.
Well, like 3G, for instance. 3G's not actually gone.
No.
Is it? It's still out there.
It is.
And so you're saying basically that you think that 5G will be the new 4G and 4G will be the new 3G, sort of.
I could see it going that way. There are also some companies that are phasing out 2G completely to make room
I didn't even know that 2G was still.
Yeah, absolutely. There are still people that use
out
2G
there.
flip phones. Like, it's insane. And when it comes down to it, some of it is going to be what there's room for on the towers.
Right.
Because they're not going to be building new towers every single time.
Right.
A lot of these they're going to be taking the existing technology and upgrading it. Like I had said earlier, there's a couple companies sending out modems and routers to produce that 5G.
Right.
That's just them evolving off of a previous type of technology, and I can't speak for certain if that's how they do that because I don't know. But when it comes down to it, the pros and cons are really going to be something for 5G that we're going to see as they come out more.
So in other words, the 5G is going to be faster, and it's gonna give more coverage. It's gonna be faster, and it's gonna give more coverage to more people. But 4G is a more tested and true technology, and there's more known about it. There's, I guess you could say, less risk involved with 4G because it's something that has been around for longer, and it's something that we're used to.
So you can look at it the same way you do with anything that you're buying something brand new for. Look at it, you buy a 2021 car, right? You don't know what's going to happen.
Right.
Like there's no one out there that's already tested it. Right. There's a chance, your transmission could go out in 20,000 miles and then you're out of luck. So like it's going to be one of those things where the cons are going to. I hope there's no cons to 5G because I've seen some research on the things that it can do.
Yeah.
And I really, really hope that there's not going to be any cons to 5G just because it's something that's going to be so exciting to see where it goes. There's so much potential. Another way to look at 5G also is if you look at 2G as a 2-lane highway. That's why it's so slow. That's why you can't do data. 3G is a 4-lane highway. 4G is a 6-lane highway. 4G LTE is an 8-lane highway. 5G is going to be like a 20-lane highway. So there's going to be so many more things you can do beyond just phones, right? And that's where it gets so exciting because it opens up so much space to have things other than just phones
connected to it. Right?
Exactly. It's going to turn into where it's going to help us have a connected world. And I know there are people that are afraid of that because it's people abusing it and
privacy issues
and things like that. Just be smart about how you do it.
Yeah.
Like the weakest link in any kind of technology or security space is the person using the technology.
Right.
So just be smart about how you do that. You don't have to worry.
And be educated. And educate yourself before you go make assumptions about stuff.
Please educate yourself. Or at least watch a YouTube video where we will try to.
Right. We try to educate you. Yeah. Exactly. So I guess let's dive into the big question, I guess, of the day here. And that question is 5G dangerous? There's a lot of articles out there that I've seen, that I've read, that say that 5G causes cancer. There's, with radiation poisoning, that type of stuff. So what can you talk to on that a little bit? Like, I know there's a lot of people that are worried about it, or they hear a lot of these rumors, and rumors spread like wildfire in our society with social media and everything nowadays. So like what's your take working for a big leading company in this implementation process and everything for 5G? What's your take on, is this a dangerous technology? Is it something that we should spend more time researching before we, push it out? Or is it something that is, tested enough where we feel like it's safe enough to go forward and push it out?
So I'm going to give a disclaimer right now. This is going to be an answer that I'm not an expert in the medical profession. So for people getting sick and things like that from that's talk to your doctor.
Right.
If you think that 5G is going to make you sick or anything like that, talk to your doctor, go to them, talk to a medical professional. That's the best advice I have for you there. Don't go to Google. Google's going to tell you you're going to die. When it comes down to it, everything is dangerous.
Right.
Anything is dangerous. Using this laptop for an extended amount of time damages my eyes.
Right.
Everything is going to be dangerous to some extent. When it comes down to it, and again, I'm not an expert on these, right? The way that I've seen most of the 5G networks that I am closest to is using a blend of previous technology that has already been deemed safe.
Gotcha.
Right? When it comes to millimeter wave is what I believe, I'm not an expert, what I believe is the one that's causing all of these people to worry about, because it is a form of what's called RF radiation.
But just to be clear here, there's companies that are evolving it differently.
Right. Millimeter wave is still going to be there. It's the basis of 5G.
Right.
But there are companies that aren't focusing on that.
Right. So there's companies out there that are focusing on more of the low band and mid band
and providing coverage for everyone over getting the people that live in big cities
faster and faster. Because we already have Wi-Fi.
We already have Wi-Fi.
Like so much Wi-Fi out there right now.
And the millimeter wave is gonna help with a lot of things, but it's gonna be different. Now, when it comes down to it, this is what I believe. There's some research that supports this. There's some research that denies it. That's how the internet is.
Right. There's two sides to every story.
There's two sides to every story.
Yeah.
I believe that millimeter wave isn't going to be as dangerous as people are making it think it is.
Mm-hmm.
Because if you look at it in the way, everything is about how much you're exposed to it.
Right.
Millimeter wave, and this is off of this Google page I just found, right?
You're just talking about Google.
It can cause some things, right? And I'm looking at reputable people, by the way. It can cause some things if you're exposed to it for a long enough time, but so can an X-ray machine.
Correct.
That's why doctors stand behind a glass door, because they're doing it for 20 years where you're in there for a minute, right? Mm-hmm. Do I personally think that millimeter wave is something to be afraid of? No, I do not. That is me personally saying that, right? Because I think by the time it gets to your phone, it has gone through so many things, and it's a weak enough signal as it is. It would not get through this desk. Right. This desk right here, this, what is it, autonomous desk that you did a video on, go watch it.
Go watch the video. I'll put a link up top.
Honestly, there's a chance it couldn't even get through this desk, right? Mm-hmm. And that's if it was sitting here beaming at it. It's something where, and that could be completely wrong, so don't quote me on that. But things like that, it's gonna get stopped on the first tree it hits.
Right.
It's not gonna penetrate through a tree.
And I want to thank you too for coming on the channel today and talking to me a little bit about this, because I did not realize there were 3 different bands, and I think
absolutely.
I think there might be a lot of confusion out there in the world as a whole right now with 5G. And before you came and even talked to me about this, I was very confused as to, it's just it could cause cancer potentially, right? Or
everything can cause cancer.
Right. But you have this thing looming in your mind, you see things on the internet and you think, this might be true, but it might not be. But hearing what you say about there's going to be a low band and a mid band that are already built, they're building on top of 4G. Those are building on top of 4G. The millimeter wave band is more aimed at just increasing speeds, but that's the one that it could be dangerous if you're standing right next to a tower. I've
that's
seen
how it's been
videos.
explained. It's been explained to me too, and I'm sure if you've done some research, you've seen that's what they've said. Yeah. It's one of those things where if you're standing directly next to the tower for 10 hours, you're going to be in trouble no matter what, whether it's 4G, 3G, it doesn't matter, right? There are people that are sensitive to radiation waves, right? And all phone stuff is some version of a wave that's being sent out, right? And there are people that are sensitive to those things. that's where it gets frustrating for me, because with the company I work at, I talk to some of these people that have some of these fears, and it gets so. The human mind is a very powerful thing, and it can blow things so out of distortion.
Yeah.
Right? And some of those things is so hard to get it back to it.
Right, get back to reality.
Get back to reality of what it
Something's
is.
blown out of proportion.
And to some extent, there are tests that are being done on these things.
Mm-hmm.
It's something where you have to believe in the company, you have to believe in the government. They're not going to let us push out something that's going to harm everyone.
Right.
Right. You also got to think, these are businesses. They're trying to make money.
Right.
Right. They're not going to be releasing things that are going to damage their customer base.
Right.
If just for the reason, and I don't think this is how those companies operate, but even if just for the reason of that's less money. And on top of that, that's lawsuits.
Right.
You got to think about those types of things. There's a lot of different things that are making sure that it's not going to be dangerous. It really does. It comes down to each individual person. It comes down to I do think we should do some more tests on some of that, because it's so inconclusive, even on the internet. And I know we said don't look at the internet, but if you're looking at the reputable sites, it's so inconclusive back and forth. You'll see one site that swears up and down it is dangerous. You'll have another site that swears up and down that it's not. Do I think the mid or low band will be dangerous? No.
It's built on our technology already. We're just
right. It's built. Most of that is built on
it.
some technology. Some companies are doing it differently and recreating it, but for the most part, is from what I have seen. I'm not fully an expert on all of that part of it, right?
Right.
From what I've seen, it's building off of previous technology that's already been there and already been tested and already is safe.
Right.
The millimeter wave, I think of it like X-ray machines.
Right.
It's not dangerous for the split second or few minutes that you're using it, but if you were to sit there and work on it for 20, 30 years, it could be dangerous. It could cause issues.
But again, as you said before, the radiation or this band or wave, it's something that gets very diluted as it gets transported from the tower.
Because it does not go very far.
Right.
It's so fast moving that the first thing it hits, it barely makes it through.
Right. So in other words, you'd have to be in direct eyesight with like a 5G tower with this type of band for it to be able to have a super high speed connection because of that deep radiation.
Yes and no. I wouldn't say eye contact, but like you would need to be around the tower. Most of those towers, from what I understand, are being put on top of like buildings to where they can see down on the street corner, and cover like the entire street. The 5G millimeter wave, I don't personally think is going to be something you're going to see inside of buildings, not without a custom tower or modem in that building. And when it comes to that, there's precautions that they're taking, safeguards and things like they're doing for that before they put it in your house, right? Because otherwise, that I think is probably where a lot of these things get scary.
Right, because like on the internet today, like nowadays, things can get very misconstrued very quickly. Like it's kind of like the game. I always go refer back to this example, like as being a child. It's like the game of telephone. You say something, and then it gets slightly distorted on the next person, and before you know it, 10 people later, the truth is completely twisted around. Like it's
right.
So I think that's a lot in part that like what has been happening with 5G is a lot of that has been kind of just twisted around and like, manipulated. Well, and like, oh my gosh, this might be horrible, but in reality, it's like it probably really isn't going to be something that's super dangerous because, again, as you said before, why would companies would not implement something
that's going to
kill people or kill off their customers?
As gruesome as that sounds, right?
Yeah, they're not going to do that. That would be a bad business decision.
Absolutely, because you're just going to lose a company, you're going to lose customers, etc.
Yeah, and lawsuits.
Like I hope that settles some of that. I hope that helps.
Yeah, no, thank you. I really appreciate understanding more about 5G
absolutely.
And the band waves and stuff because I think there's a lot of misinformation out there on the internet. So I guess the next question I would have for you is, have you ever heard, this is going to be kind of a far out question, like,
okay,
have you ever heard of like this whole 5G revolt type thing where people are actually, this is actually true, like they're actually doing this. I've seen actual videos on this on the internet where people are actually going out and lighting these 5G towers on fire to try to get rid of them because they think that they're gonna kill everyone and they're horribly dangerous. Like, have you? I know it sounds crazy, but it's an actual thing that's happening. Like,
so I had actually not heard of that. That sounds ridiculous, and I'm looking it up here. CNET, yeah, that's true.
Burning towers.
Burning towers because they think it's linked to the coronavirus.
Well, that too.
Stop it. just stop it. Like, you're causing more damage potentially to yourself by being around those and burning those because you don't. There are things that make up these towers. There are safeguards that are put on these towers, I'm sure, that are preventing these and keeping them safe. If you're going through and burning these, who knows what you're releasing out? Who knows
the air, right?
The
like
air
chemicals
around you. You're causing damage. Like, but like, don't burn things down. You're damaging. Not to be
People are
a bad
crazy.
guy. You're damaging the environment.
Right.
You're putting a setback for businesses. You are listening to conspiracy theories.
And you're putting your life in danger.
And you're putting your life in danger by doing that.
Even more so than
you're
leaving it alone.
You're risking jail time. You're risking. This is stupid.
Yeah.
I'm sorry if I offend you, but don't be stupid.
Don't be stupid and go burn a cell phone tower down.
Don't be stupid and go burn anything down.
Right.
Like, unless that's your job.
All right, well, let's talk about the last question here before we wrap up the video today. So the last question I have for you, Cody, is what do you see the industry shift? Like, when do you see the industry as a whole switching over to 5G from like 4G, 3G type technologies? Like, when do you see that kind of paradigm shift taking place? Or like, I should say more like the majority of the market shifting to 5G than 4G? Like, when will 5G overtake 4G is my question.
So, I think it's already started. The most recent Samsung, because realistically when it comes to this type of stuff, the carrier can put out whatever they want for a signal. It's whether or not the phone makers will actually adapt and make it with them.
Right.
So the most recent Samsung phones came out with
the S20.
5G. The S20s all have 5G. There's a Note version, the Note 10 Plus version that has a 5G phone. Some of these are limited to specific carriers. I'm just rattling off the ones that I know have 5G.
There's one I think it was called
Huawei.
Yeah,
I think that's how that's pronounced.
Huawei.
If not, someone phonetically spell it in the comments.
It is Huawei. I'm pretty sure. Yeah.
But like, there's all sorts of ones out there. There's LG has some out there. There's the OnePlus phones that have them. Motorola has them. Like, everyone realistically, all of the major brands, and I don't know for sure if Huawei has one or not.
I'm pretty sure they do. I'm
sure they do.
Yeah.
And it's going to be something where, as the phones come out, it's going to be something where
it's going to be
on. It's going to be all of
transitioning.
the phones. Like right now, they have these special labels for 5G.
Right.
Like the Galaxy Note 10 Plus 5G.
Right.
Is a specific.
Because they still sell just a 4G.
Right. And I think that's going to go away, and when that goes away, that's when we're going to see all 5G.
Just everything's starting to shift to that.
Yes.
Yeah.
Now, with that being said, it's still split. Some companies have the millimeter wave, some companies have the low band. But the S20 Ultra 5G actually has both millimeter wave and 5G in it, if I remember correctly. I could be wrong. I'm trying to look that up right now, and it's not coming up. So, like, when it comes down to it, I think it's going to be very soon. Now, when we'll actually see the full integration into society, so more devices, more smart devices, seeing 5G in watches and cars and things like that, I don't know. I think it could be a few years. I think it could be 10 years. I don't know. I think in the next decade, life is going to look completely different than it does now in technology.
Oh, yeah. Well, technology is always evolving, right? Like,
right.
And another thing I'd like to bring up, too, on that is that people, and this is not me making this up, this is something that, like, I've done research on and I've seen, and there's multiple articles out there on this, guys, is people are, in general now, keeping their devices for a longer amount of time than before. Like, if you go back 10 years ago, people would upgrade their phones more often than they seem to now.
Right, and I think that has to do with rising prices.
Right, because the prices of those devices have gone up. Yeah.
Right, the Note 10 Plus 5G is like a $1,500 phone. These phones are lasting longer.
True.
I think that's also partially because there have been some tactics that have been exposed and have had to change. You know what I'm talking about.
Yeah.
And there are other things where they're just building them better because it's this phone or that phone.
Right.
If my phone is built better and will last longer, I've also noticed this. There are people buying $600, $700, $800 phones using them for 4 or 5 years. Mm-hmm. Then there are people buying $200 phones using them for 2 years. Mm-hmm. At that point, at some point, you're spending the same amount of money.
Right, because
over the time frame. One just lasts longer. You have the one phone instead of having to upgrade and spend more periodically.
Every upgrade cycle. Yeah.
Not to go down this rabbit hole. I think it's partially that there's not as much money out there as there used to be.
True, our economy
things like that. And that gets very, very political. We're not going to go there.
Yeah, slippery slope.
But I think it has to do with some of that. I think it's mostly that the phones are being built better and they're more expensive now.
All right, Cody, well, thanks very much for joining us today on the channel.
Absolutely.
I really appreciate you talking to us about 5G and what it has in store. I'm really excited to kind of see how this evolves in the future.
Absolutely. It was fun.
Thanks, yeah. And I hope to have you back on the channel here in the near future. We can talk some computers, games, all the fun techie stuff in our world around us now. All right, guys, well, thanks for watching the video today here on the channel. If you liked it, make sure you give it a thumbs up, click the bell for notifications, and make sure you hit the subscribe button at the top. And again, leave your comments down below. I'd love to hear what you think about 5G and how it may or may not change technology going forward in the future. And again, as always, thanks for watching the channel, and we'll see you next time in another Love Tech video.